Toyota has already pulled and replaced more than 70,000 engines, not 70,000 parts, 70,000 complete engines out of roughly 270,000 trucks and SUVs recalled across 3 separate campaigns since 2024. Owners who fell outside the recall window and got quoted for the job out of pocket have reported numbers in the $12,000 to $20,000 range once you add labor. And after all of that money, all of that downtime, all of those loaner cars, Toyota filed a document with federal regulators admitting the manufacturing fixes did not solve it. Their words from the federal filing: remaining debris could be sufficient to cause damage to the #1 main bearing. Every video you have watched about this recall told you the same story. Metal shavings left in the block at the factory, swarf, machining debris. Toyota said it, the press repeated it, and that was the end of the coverage. This video is not about the debris. This video is about what the debris is landing on, and why that same word, contamination, shows up in General Motors filings, in Nissan filings, and in class action complaints against Volkswagen, all within the same few years. 4 companies, 4 continents of engineering, 1 identical failure point. Start with what Toyota actually did, because they told on themselves in the paperwork. When Toyota revised production, the federal filing lists 2 separate changes. Some engines were built with improved manufacturing processes to reduce debris, others were produced with an improved main bearing. Read that second one again. If your problem is genuinely metal shavings left in the block, you fix the cleaning process. You do not redesign the bearing. Toyota redesigned the bearing because the bearing could not survive contamination that engines had been surviving for the previous 80 years. So, what is a main bearing, and why does that matter? Your crankshaft does not touch the engine block. It floats on a film of pressurized oil, maybe 1/20th the thickness of a human hair, held inside a soft metal shell. That shell is the bearing. Its job is not just to be slippery. Its job is to be forgiving. When a particle comes through the oil, and particles always come through the oil in every engine ever built, a good bearing swallows it. The particle sinks into the soft surface layer and stops circulating. Engineers call that property embeddability, and for most of the 20th century it was achieved with lead. Lead is soft. Lead is a solid lubricant, which means when oil film drops off for a fraction of a second, the surface still protects itself. A traditional trimetal bearing was a steel back, a copper-lead lining, and a thin lead-based overlay on top, and that overlay could be up to 90% lead. It was the sacrificial layer. It ate the dirt so your crankshaft did not. That is what your grandfather's engine had. That is why a small block Chevy could run 300,000 miles on filter changes and prayer. It was not built to tighter tolerances than a modern engine. It was built to be tolerant of not being perfect. Then the regulation arrived. The European Union's End-of-Life Vehicles Directive restricted lead in vehicles placed on the market after July 2003. Bearings got a temporary exemption, and the directive stated the Commission would assess whether lead-free technology could be applied in all engines and transmissions without harming their proper functioning. That assessment happened, the exemption closed, and because no manufacturer builds a separate American market engine bearing whatever Europe decided, you got in your driveway in Ohio and Texas. The supplier industry did what suppliers do. They engineered replacements, aluminum tin bimetals, bismuth substituted for LED, sputtered coatings, silicon and copper alloys. Ford launched an entire generation of diesel engines on LED-free bearings, and the technical literature treated it as a success story. But the same technical literature is blunt about what got lost. A December 2016 technical study prepared for the European Commission's exemption process states it plainly. Lead-free substitutes such as copper tin or aluminum alloys offer 20 to 80% less debris holding capability compared to bearings constructed with LED, 20 to 80% less. And the same report goes further, citing manufacturer testing directly. Bench tests show lead-based bearings give the best reliability. Field testing shows that in harsh and demanding conditions, engines with LED-free bearings fail on average much sooner than engines with leaded bearings. Higher tendency to seize, less able to conform when misalignment occurs, less able to cope with particulate debris in the lubricant. That is not a YouTube theory. That is the bearing industry telling European regulators, in writing, what removing lead cost them. Now hold that number next to Toyota's explanation. Toyota says microscopic debris destroyed the #1 main bearing on 270,000 vehicles. The bearing in that engine has, by the industry's own measurement, somewhere between 20 and 80% less capacity to absorb debris than the bearing that would have been in the same position 20 years ago. The debris is not new. Machining leaves swarf in every engine block ever produced. What changed is that the surface it lands on can no longer swallow it. If you own one of these trucks, drop a comment with your model year and your mileage, and tell me whether your engine has been inspected, replaced, or is still sitting in the queue waiting for a remedy letter. I read them. Now for the part that turns this from an engineering story into something harder to forgive. In 2019, the European Commission adopted Delegated Directive. It granted a brand new exemption allowing lead bearings and bushes to continue in diesel and gaseous fuel internal combustion engines used in non-road professional equipment. Mobile cranes, mobile air compressors, mobile welding equipment. The stated reasoning is in the document. Lead-containing bearings are necessary to achieve satisfactory reliability in terms of seizure resistance, conformability, embeddability, and debris resistance in large engines, and those operating in harsh or demanding environments. And then the line that should make every truck owner watching this sit up. Currently, there are no lead-free alternatives available on the market which would provide sufficient level of reliability. That was written in 2019. 19 years after the passenger car rule. Regulators looked at the evidence, agreed that lead-free bearings were not reliable enough for equipment that works hard, and carved out an exemption to protect that equipment. A mobile crane got to keep the lead metal. A welding rig got to keep the lead metal. Your 3/4-ton truck towing a fifth wheel through a mountain pass in August, running higher cylinder pressure than any engine in history, did not. Nobody ever asked whether a turbocharged pickup pulling 12,000 pounds counts as a harsh or demanding environment. The category simply did not exist, so the exemption did not apply. If you think that distinction is worth other truck owners seeing, share this video because this is the kind of thing that gets buried in an annex to a directive and stays buried. Watch how the same fingerprint shows up at General Motors. The 6.2-liter L87 recall, Campaign 25V-274, covers roughly 600,000 vehicles across the Silverado, Tahoe, Suburban, Sierra, Yukon, Yukon XL, and Escalade. GM's stated cause is a supplier issue involving rod bearing contamination and crankshafts falling outside factory specification. Contamination again. And look at the remedy for the engines that pass inspection. GM permanently changed the oil specification from 0W20 to a Dexos R0W40. They did not change the bearing on those trucks. They made the oil thicker, so the film between the crankshaft and the bearing gets stronger because the bearing itself can no longer tolerate a thin film or a hard particle. Nissan tells the same story in a different accent. Roughly 500,000 Rogues recalled in mid-2025 for engine failure. Then another 650,000 vehicles in February 2026 for the same underlying issue. Volkswagen and Audi are facing a class action over the EA8882 2-liter turbo-burning oil through defective piston rings. General Motors is facing a class action over the 1.2-liter 3-cylinder. So what do you actually do about it? If your engine is under an open recall, get the inspection documented in writing even if they tell you the truck passed, because that paper is what you will need later. Run the thickest oil your manufacturer permits, not the thinnest. And if you tow, treat the severe service interval as your normal interval rather than the optional one. Cut your drain intervals well below the maximum on the sticker. Send a used oil analysis at least once a year because copper, tin, aluminum, and lead in that report are the bearing telling you what is happening months before you hear a knock. Let a cold engine idle long enough for oil pressure to establish before you put it under load, especially in winter. And save every receipt, because when a warranty claim gets denied, maintenance documentation is the entire argument. None of that fixes the metallurgy. It buys you time, and with an engine that cannot forgive a mistake, time is the only thing available for purchase. Tell me in the comments which engine you are running and how many miles are on it.